Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to another episode of Manifesting Muslimah. I'm your host, Zara Pedersen, and today we're going to talk about Deen over Dunya, or the problems with people who kind of override Dunya completely for Deen. And I know that just saying that can probably be quite triggering to a few of you. So, if that is you, then this episode is probably for you. I know that even saying it out loud feels like, oh, shame on me. Like, can I even have this kind of conversation? But I've already had this conversation many a times. But this is the first time that I'm going to have it in the podcast. And so it'll be interesting to see how you guys respond to this episode, and also just to hear your feedback on this, which I also really want to drop in really quickly and say thank you to every single one of you who has taken the time to reach out to me, whether it be in the comments here on Spotify, or if it is sending me messages over on my Instagram and letting me know that you're listening in, where you're listening in from, and just your takeaway sort of bits from the podcast. What helped you, what resonated with you, something that was sort of like, oh, wow, this is the first time I heard it in this way and it really resonated. I really appreciate every single one of your messages, and I don't think I can quite properly explain how much it just fills my heart with glee and makes my soul jump with joy. It is so amazing to hear from you and to hear where you're listening in from. That really just makes my day every time you slide into my DMs. So feel free to continue doing that. And also for those of you who come into my DMs, suggesting episodes for the podcast for the future, I also see you, and I'm so appreciative of you. Thank you so much. You're constantly helping me improve and make better this podcast, inshallah, so that we can continue having a platform here to share in the love for Allah and living a life that's where we can serve him while also enjoying this dunya, which very aptly brings us back again to the topic at hand, which is this whole Deen over Dunya thing, and when it's being taken to extremes. And I want to be very, very clear here that I do believe in Deen over Dunya. Of course I do. I'm a Muslim. I want the good life in the akhirah. I don't want to settle, and I definitely don't want to end up in the bad place. So I want the good place. I want to go to heaven. I want to be able to be rewarded for things that I've done and forgiven for the sins that I have committed in this life. But I do believe that this Deen over Dunya can be taken to extremes where it no longer benefits us at all as Muslims, and can quite often make us miserable can make us miserable, can make us bitter, can make us judgmental of others who have beautiful deen but also have a beautiful dunya. And I think it's important that we broaden our perspectives on this saying so that we understand what it means and what it doesn't mean. And so I want to talk a little bit into that today, because as a law of attraction coach, I often get this kind of hesitancy from a lot of you about, should I really be, asking for this? What if Allah doesn't want me to have more? Like, am I being greedy? I already have enough. And, I'd rather, just focus on my deen, like, which is obviously a beautiful thing, but, to the point where, you feel like you have to sacrifice in this dunya, where I am personally, and again, this is where it'll be interesting to hear your input, if you have differentiating inputs, to hear your input on this subject, because I personally believe that this dunya is part of, obviously it is the test, but part of the test is also navigating in this dunya and doing it in a way where the deen thrives, but you're also allowed to thrive in the dunya. I.e. having a beautiful life, being successful, having abundance, and just generally just doing really well for yourself. And I think when I look at the extremes of Deen over Dunya, I see people almost saying, I'm not going to try hard because trying hard means that I am elevating dunya over deen, which I think is such a wrong place to come from, because you're basically in that also saying, I choose to neglect, or not neglect, ignore some of Allah's blessings to us in this dunya, because Allah blesses us in this dunya. Of course, the ultimate blessing and reward comes in the akhirah. You know, we all want Jannah. So, you know, that is the ultimate reward. But there is also rewards in this dunya. There are also successes to be had in this dunya. There is also abundance to be had in this dunya. There's a lot of beauty in this dunya as well. And to ignore that is to ignore a great big part of the blessings that Allah is ready and willing to give to us, if we are also asking for it and working towards it, of course. But I see a lot of people almost feeling like the deen over dunya is like, I'd rather live in poverty. Well, not as I would rather live in poverty, but I choose poverty because I feel like it is more humble of me. And I'm giggling a little bit because clearly I don't agree with this. Some of the most influential Muslim leaders live in great richness and you know, financial abundance. And I wouldn't argue, well, I don't know them personally, but I would argue that their humility is not lacking. You know, I would definitely hope so. But some of the greatest scholars, imams, leaders, sheikhs, they make their money, but they're also, you know, their deen is still strong. So it's, I don't see how, you know, not succeeding in this dunya makes you more pure in your deen. Perhaps it is the case for some people. You know, each of our journeys is different, and so to some people the road to Allah might come through poverty, and for others it'll come through wealth, but this is where we are each so individually different, and we all have a unique way to Allah. But to come in and I guess discriminate so wildly with the statement deen over dunya and make people feel bad and judging people for what they have, because you think it is more holy or more religious or more spiritually correct of you to not have as much, or that having more makes you less religious somehow, and then judging and making other people feel bad for the things that they have or the things that they want. I find it quite problematic, and I don't know if I'm the only one who's seen this. Again, feel free to let me know, reach out and let me know your thoughts on this. But one of the things that I've noticed is it is such an overarching theme in the Ummah that it really deters a lot of people from really succeeding, whether it like specifically financially, to go out and really create successful businesses and not be scared of really setting money as a big target for themselves. Like, I want financial abundance. You know, abundance can be many things, but to specifically narrow it down to financial abundance. And it can make people feel really guilty and feel shame in desiring that, while, you know, in their desiring that could be a blessing from Allah, in that they can, by attaining that financial wealth, be able to help their communities more, donate more in zakat, and do really well with this financial blessing that Allah might be ready to, you know, rain upon them. But they might kind of hold themselves back because they may be surrounded by people who kind of creep in a little bit from the background and remind them, like, oh, don't get too caught up on the finances. It's not the finance. Oh, you're getting too caught up in this dunya. So it's not just a dunya. And, you know, and kind of bringing them back a little bit and holding them back from potentially realizing this greatness that they could achieve by the will of Allah. I liken this whole thing, I did a TikTok video where I also spoke about it really quickly, and I liken it to sort of like, you know, a driving test. So we all understand that this dunya is the test. This is this is just for Allah to judge us based upon how we act, how we handle ourselves, our deen, our intentions, everything like that. And then the real reward and the real life comes in the hereafter. So we understand this as Muslims. But this is still the test. And I say it in the video, and I'll reiterate here, just like at a job interview or a driving test, you don't show up half-assing it. You want to come whole-assing it. You want to be an asshole. Sorry, I'm horrible. So you want to come in giving everything. When you don't come into a job interview and you say, I'm not going to give you my best side. I'm not going to show up today at the job interview dressed nicely and acting correctly and having all the information that you need from me. I'm going to give you the information only when you give me the job. You're going to rock up with your best, right? And showing that you can do all the things that potentially could be a part of your future job if you were to get hired, right? And so that's kind of what I'm seeing that people don't do in this dunya. They don't show up wholeheartedly in the dunya because they keep thinking only of the akhirah, which fine, yes, we should 100% think of the akhirah, but this is the test. This is where we're literally, showing Allah the best of us. We're showing how we can perform as his servants in this dunya. So we're showing the best sides of us, and how can I elevate, how can I do more, how can I, and one thing is the spiritual religious aspect of praying, making dhikr, dua, paying zakat, but another thing is also the very real life 3D aspects of living in this dunya, which means having a job, providing for your family, being a good neighbor, the work that you work on, because some people might be really good Muslims, but then they work selling alcohol, and maybe they could change that because morally speaking, at the very least, well, I don't know, is it haram to sell? I actually don't know that. You can definitely come in and teach me here. I can't remember if it's haram to sell alcohol or if it's the fact that it's not tayyib, because we can't drink alcohol. I know this, but whether or not selling alcohol is also sort of prohibited, or if it's sort of more like frowned upon, it's not great, but but you can slide into my DMs, let me know. I'm sure I can also Google search that, but yeah, just I just prefer hearing from you guys. I trust you. So anyway, so how can we also show up in the dunya aspects of things? Because I'm going to use another example because I do love my examples, and I love my metaphors, even though they don't always make sense. Because I have a tendency to make up metaphors because I forget the real ones. Either way. So the same thing of taking a driver's test. You want to get your driver's license and you're going into a driver's test. So first you do the schooling. That's one thing. And then you go into the actual test itself where you're driving around town. Now, the thing is that in order for you to pass the driver's test, you have to go and drive in actual traffic. They don't have a setting somewhere where there's no other cars and you're basically just driving around in circles and parallel parking, between cones. You're parallel parking or whatever in real traffic when there's people behind you, there's two cars, it might be a bit of a tight fit, there's sirens going in the other way, there's children playing on the, you're taking the test in the action. And that is the test itself, that can you juggle it all? And so in this case, in this metaphor that I'm creating here, you're the driver, the car is your deen, and the world around you is what you're maneuvering. So, you want to keep the car intact. You don't want to damage it, but that still requires you, to drive the car. Are you okay there, Doodles? He's got a cone on because he had surgery a couple of weeks ago and he started licking the thing. So I just gave him a little cone on. So if you hear the scratching in the background, that's because he's hitting the cone on the wall and stuff. Anyway, so, I can't remember exactly where I was, but the point is that if you're the driver and the car is your deen, you can't stay parked. That defeats the purpose of you being in a car to begin with. You have to drive the car, right? And you drive the car amongst other cars, so the other cars, let's say those are Muslims. The people that are walking on the streets might be other religious people, and then let's call the traffic cones or whatever the atheists. But the point is that, this is the world you're in, and you're driving, and you're never not going to have situations where you're going to be interacting with either other cars, people on the street, bicycles, buses, trains, train tracks, a cow on the street. I don't know where you live, but there could be cows on the street, or a fox or a cat running across the street. There could be a playground, a school next to you, a hospital, sirens, all of these things happening. And the test is you being able to safely drive the car in that situation. And I think that's how I kind of view it. Like, again, the test of it is to be able to do that, and then you can go on and drive your car on your own. But you have to show that you can do that first. And I see that a bit like us in this dunya, in that driving test. Again, we're not showing up half-assed. We're not showing up saying, I'm not really going to take it that seriously. Like, if I scratch the car, who cares? You can trust that I can drive, so just give me the driver's license. Like, I know where everything works. I know how it works. The instructor's going to be like, no, you scratched the car. Like, you clearly don't know the dimensions of the car, so you fail the test. And I see it very much as us in this dunya, showing up wholeheartedly. And a part of us being Muslim in this dunya, the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created this dunya, is that we can maintain our deen even if we have financial abundance, even if we're going through bankruptcy, even if we are looking for jobs, even if we're going through a divorce, even if we are wanting to travel the world, or we want a wardrobe full of designer handbags, or whatever it might be. It doesn't, like, I don't even really care what it is that you want or are going through. The point is that in all of the dunya aspects of being in this dunya entails that the deen is maintained. But the more you basically say you don't want to involve yourself in the dunya because you only concern yourself with the deen, I feel like you're missing a really big, vital part of the test. It is very easy, and I should know this. I should know this because my therapist actually called me out on it so much last year, because after my divorce I moved to Spain, and I moved up in the mountains, and I completely isolated myself, and it was beautiful. I'm not complaining. It was absolutely wonderful. We should all be able to do that once or twice in our lives, just self-isolate and just work on ourselves. Alhamdulillah that Allah gave me an option to be able to do that. I really think it helped me. But one of the things in the conversations that I had with my therapist, which I had weekly with her, was the fact that I said, like, I'm doing as the best that I have ever been doing. I feel so happy. I feel so content. I feel so at peace. And she said, I'm really happy to hear that, Zara. I really am. Trust me. But it's easy to feel peace and really good about yourself when you're not involving yourself with the rest of the world. And at first I was really pushing back on this, because I was like, well, I don't need other people. Like, I'm clearly doing fine here with my chickens, my dogs, and my turkey. Like, I don't need people. What do I need people for? Clearly, look at this. I'm doing great. And she had to constantly remind me, but this is not life. This is, you can, of course, self-isolate, but that's not a life enjoyed fully. I was going to say I'm a young person. I'm not. Like, I'm a decently young person. I'm 37, whatever you want to call that. Now I'm 37. I was 36 at the point. But she was like, you're too young to self-isolate. You can still meet somebody. You need to have friends around. You need to have family, job opportunities, things like that. And I knew she meant it. Like, she meant it well, and I understood what she meant. And I also knew she was right in what she was saying to me. But, of course, it is so easy for us to feel like we're succeeding if we're isolating. And that's the same thing with our deen. It's so easy to succeed if we're also, or feel like we're succeeding, if we're also putting so many walls up around ourselves that we can't really be tested on it. We don't see where the little kinks in the armor are. We don't see where there's little holes where water can seep in, because we're self-isolating. We're not seeing what we need to work on, what we can improve, what aspects and perspectives do we need to deep dive in, or are we kind of focusing too much on and can kind of relax a little bit on, or whatever it might be. And that's kind of how I see the dunya aspect of this test doing to us, is we can, in our mind, we know where we stand, perhaps, or in our hearts, we might know where we stand with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Islamically, religiously, spiritually. But the real test comes when we then go to our jobs and we have to figure out, oh, do I pray at my work? Do I ask them if I can, step out every time it's time for salah? Do I pray when I come home? Do I find time to go to the masjid on Fridays, because I usually go to masjid, but now I'm supposed to be working in those hours? Do I fast? I work in restaurant, I work in whatever, or I work in construction. I don't know. The point is, this is where the real tests come in, when we are combining deen and dunya, when there's an overlap of the two, because this is where we start seeing the things that we can start improving, things where we need to readjust, things where we need to kind of have a different perspective. Maybe sometimes it means that we have to move, maybe sometimes it means we have to make more money, make less money, have a different job, have a different partner, have a different friend group. But that's the whole point. That's the whole point of this. This is the test, but the test is all of it combined. So all in all, like, what I'm trying to say in this specific podcast episode is, if you're sitting out there and you're thinking to yourself, like, I get the whole law of attraction and stuff, but I don't know, I feel really guilty, or I feel shame around maybe asking, or I feel ungrateful of sitting down in dua and asking Allah for more, because shouldn't I be asking for more, in myself, in the deen, in my religious journey, but I'm asking for materialistic things? It's part of it. It is part of it. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to us that he will answer the prayers, the du'as, he doesn't say only the spiritually correct ones. There's not a little something to hang on, an extra little note on top of that. Like, it's just like, you ask me, I deliver. And so part of it is also, ask for the things that are going to strengthen your deen and make you a better servant as Allah's servant in this dunya. But ask for the things in this dunya as well, because it's part of the test. Sometimes receiving it is part of the test. Sometimes not receiving it is part of the test. Sometimes receiving it and then keeping it is part of the test. Sometimes receiving it and then losing it is part of the test. Sometimes receiving it and then receiving even more than that is part of the test. All of it is part of the test. And I just don't want you to forego these parts of the tests and actually asking Allah for a successful, beautiful, abundant life in this dunya, while also improving your deen. You can have both. You can have both, and it is totally safe for you to have both and ask for both. It is okay to ask Allah that he makes this test an enjoyable one for you, a beautiful one for you. That doesn't mean that he's not going to, test you on other things in this dunya at the same time. But you can absolutely say, I don't want it to be finances. Give me stable financial, foundation, and test me on other things. Or say, let it not be my health, or let it not be my family, or whatever. Whether or not Allah wants to answer that specific prayer in this dunya, that's a whole other thing. And, we can discuss those things maybe in another episode, in terms of more like about health, because sometimes our health is written in specific ways. But that can be a whole other episode. But, ask within the limitations of the law of attraction. Ask within the limitations of what Allah has accepted to provide for us. Ask from a place where you understand and acknowledge that the dunya and the things that you're acquiring in this dunya does not remove you from your deen. You removing yourself from your deen is the removal. It's a choice. You have to choose it, or you have to choose something that is going to remove you from your deen. So make sure you're asking for the things. Make sure you're also having a beautiful test while you're here. Show up in this dunya. Show up and show Allah that it is not that I mean, I don't believe in multitasking as a real thing, but let's pretend it's a real thing. But so to show Allah that you don't only know how to multitask when you're cleaning the house and cooking and dealing with your children at the same time, but that you also know how to multitask with the Deen and Dunya aspect of things, that you can be there spiritually and religiously for Allah, but also be in the dunya and enjoy the blessings of this dunya at the same time. So you can be in both places at once, and you don't have to minimize one in order for the other one to thrive. You can make both of them thrive, but it really requires that you make very conscious decisions, intentional decisions, and you constantly check back on your intentions every time you ask for something of Allah, whether it be for your deen or this dunya, and that you're just basically checking in with yourself and constantly turning your face back to Allah, sitting down in prayer to Allah, reading your Quran, making dua, making dhikr, coming back to Allah every step of the way. The moment you stop doing that is the moment you've lost. I mean, I think we all know this one, right? Like the moment we stop turning our faces to Allah is the moment that we get the most redirected in this dunya. Not because we get a new pair of shoes necessarily, or because we got a new higher paying job. It is if or when we decide that I'll just skip this salah, I'll just skip today of fasting, I'll just not pay zakat this year, it's fine. Those are the moments that we need to really look out for. But those are decisions that you're making. And the dunya might come in and distract from time to time, but it's not the dunya that's telling you not to do it. You're still the one who has to make that decision and make that choice. If that is a choice you are afraid you're going to make, then, maybe that's something you need to work on. And I'm here for you if you need to work on that. I will soon be offering one-on-one coaching sessions again. It'll be not 5 days a week. It'll probably be only 2 or 3, but they'll soon be up again. Otherwise, I still have my membership, which is going beautifully. I absolutely am so in love with that membership and the women in there and the results that everybody's seeing. It is honestly... It's just a community of women that I didn't know I needed, and I've got it, and I feel so complete having them. And if you're interested in joining a community of like-minded women where I'm from all over the world, by the way, from all over the world, who support each other, who bounce ideas off each other, who help each other through this dunya, the tests of this dunya, plus working on improving ourselves and our deen in this dunya, then you should definitely consider signing up for Manifesting Muslimah membership. It's £10 a month. You can cancel it at any time. We meet twice a week live on Zoom, and it is absolutely wonderful. I couldn't have asked for anything more, and it makes me so happy and so grateful that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decided for me to set up a group like that. And I'm so happy and grateful to myself that I listened to that call and that intuitive call, and actually follow through with it. So if you've been having that intuitive call yourself to join or seek a community of like-minded women, then maybe this is the sign you've been looking for. There'll be a link in the show notes, and then of course everywhere else where I can put a link in my bios, there will be one there. That's the membership. It's £10 a month. They will meet twice a week. All right, my darling, that is what I had for you today. I will love you and leave you, but until next time, my darling friend, please don't forget to live in love.